May 8, 1942. Lieutenant Swede Vedesa, in an SPD Dauntless dive bomber, is dogfighting 3 Japanese Zero fighters. Something it was never designed to do. 2 enemy Zeros have Swede locked in from in front and behind. But now, a third is diving on him from 3 o'clock high. The Zero dives on Swede as he jinks aggressively to fend off attacks from the other 2 Zeros. The Japanese unleash hundreds of rounds. Some slice through Vedesa's fuselage. The top SPD keeps flying. Supreme mastery of his aircraft has kept Swede alive, but in the tight turns, he fights to keep his hands and feet at the controls. At times, his body weighs over 1,000 pounds.
I was jerking that airplane and pushing it hard, diving wide open. And same thing on negative G's, positive G's.
So as Lieutenant Vedesa is fending off these attacks from the Zeros, he's just aggressively maneuvering his aircraft, which is going to put a lot of forces on the body. A lot of G's, positive and negative, so seat in the pants and then floating in your straps, followed by slips, kicking around the cockpit.
The violent turns stymie the enemy attacks, but in the back seat, the rear gunner cannot fire. Near blacking out in the 9G turns, he can barely keep his head up, much less aim his .30 cal.
The problem being, he's strapped in, and the maneuvers were so violent that he couldn't swing the gun. He couldn't get into position.
So after fending off multiple attacks, basically he's just trying to force those Japanese Zeros into making a mistake.
The mistake Swede is looking for is in the Zero's turn. After each head-on pass, the enemy pilot must make an extremely tight turn. If it's too loose, Swede's own turn will put him on the Zero's tail. The maneuvers continue, and Swede waits for a moment to strike. The fight has gone on for an agonizing 17 minutes. In the high G turns, his heart pounds in his chest, struggling to pump blood to his extremities. His muscles ache against the physical exhaustion of combat. Vedesa must go on the offensive.
On one particular one, he went out a little bit farther, and I was able to pull up on his tail.
It's a fatal mistake. Vedesa pounces.
And I felt I got a pretty good burst on him. I see at this time he's smoking, so I figured it must have hit him.
Swede Vedesa's gotten in a lethal counterpunch, but there's still 2 Zeros in the air. One screams in for another vertical pass. As the enemy pilot pulls up out of his dive, Swede sees an opening and goes for it. He pitches up, bringing his guns to bear.
I was able to pull up into almost a vertical, and he was close at hand. He's at an angle, and he's making a turn up there, and I came up practically on his beam, and I got in a good burst on him, and then I stalled and dropped away.
Vedesa recovers from the stall. The burning Zero falls from the sky, barely missing the SPD as it plunges towards the sea. After evading repeated Japanese attacks with 2 bold maneuvers, Vedesa has almost evened the odds. Only 1 Zero remains.
This was a fight to the death. He's out to kill me, and I'm going to get him.
Vedesa in his slow dive bomber is here. The agile Zero is here, wheeling around on Vedesa for a final decisive head-on pass.
He turned around, and he came back at me. And I thought at this time he'd been firing so many times, that guy must be out of ammunition.
But Vedesa is wrong. The Zero is still lobbing cannon shells at the SBD. He skids left, dodging the Zero's lethal fire.
But he kept coming. I knew at that time he intended to crash me.
The suicidal Japanese pilot barrels in, bent on ramming Swede's SBD.
At the last moment, I jerked the airplane, went into a vertical, and then rolled back. And as I rolled back, there was this tremendous clap as we passed. I knew I saw something fly off, and I thought, my God, I lost an aileron.
Miraculously, Vedesa has survived a mid-air collision with the Zero.
You would think that two aircraft closing at those speeds, probably combined closure rate of almost 500 miles an hour, and then any parts of the aircraft touching, you think it would be catastrophic for both aircraft. As it turns out, the ruggedness of the SBD ripped apart the Japanese Zero.
I turned back on his tail, all right, and he's smoking. And he dove into the cloud about 1,000 feet below, and he disappeared. That was the end of the dogfight.
After knocking out 3 Zeros with a lone dive bomber, Swede Vedesa lands back on the Yorktown a hero. He is awarded the Navy Cross for his actions.
Well, we often say in this business that we stand on the backs of giants. And no kidding, Lieutenant Vedesa is one of those giants to be able to execute the feat that he executed that day.